The nursery door stood half open. He could hear humming, soft, familiar but not from anyone he knew. Tobias stepped closer, briefcase still in hand, shoes silent on the marble hallway. The mid-afternoon light sliced through the doorway in golden beams. Then he saw them. His twins, 3-year-old Leo and Sophie, sat cross-legged on the floor. The nanny knelt between them, her back to the door. In her hands, something small and fragile. The children weren't moving. They were watching her with the kind of attention children never gave anyone. Not him, not their mother, not anyone. She whispered something he couldn't hear. Sophie reached out, hesitated, then touched the nanny's hand. And Leo smiled. Not the polite smile he gave at birthday parties, a real one. Tobias's throat tightened, his pulse hammered in his ears. What is she doing to them? He pushed the door open. All three of them turned. And the nanny's face went pale. 6 weeks earlier, Tobias Harrington had been standing in the exact same hallway, holding a resume in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. Her references are impeccable, his wife Vivienne had said, scrolling through her phone without looking up. Oxford-educated, fluent in 3 languages, worked for the Ashford family in London for 4 years. Why'd she leave? Tobias asked. The children grew up. Vivienne glanced at him briefly. She specializes in early development, ages 2 to 5. After that, she moves on. Tobias scanned the resume again. Sienna Brooks, 29. No photo attached, which was unusual but not unheard of. And you've met her? Twice, Vivienne said. She's perfect, calm, professional. The twins need structure, Tobias. You're never here, and I have the foundation gala, the museum board, the literacy fundraiser next month. I know. He set the resume down on the marble console table, watching the morning light reflect off the gold lettering of her name. Fine, hire her. Vivienne smiled, not warmly, efficiently, the kind of smile she gave donors when they wrote large checks. She starts Monday. Tobias nodded and glanced toward the staircase where he could hear the twins shrieking, their current nanny's frustrated voice rising above the chaos. They'd gone through 3 nannies in 8 months. One quit after Leo bit her. Another left after Sophie locked her in the linen closet. The third simply stopped showing up. He didn't blame them. His children were brilliant, beautiful, and utterly unmanageable. Sienna Brooks arrived on a gray Monday morning with a single black suitcase and a leather shoulder bag worn soft at the edges. No dramatics, no small talk. She shook Tobias's hand once. Her grip was firm, her eyes steady, dark brown, almost black, the kind of eyes that saw more than they let on. Mr. Harrington. Welcome, he said. The twins are in the playroom. My wife will show you around. Sienna nodded and followed Vivienne up the curved staircase without another word. Tobias watched from the foyer, coffee cup cooling in his hand. Something about her felt different. Not wrong, just deliberate. She moved like someone who'd learned to take up exactly the right amount of space, neither invisible nor intrusive. Her clothes were simple: navy cardigan, white blouse, dark trousers, no jewelry except a thin silver watch. He shook it off and left for the office. The first 2 weeks were uneventful. Sienna moved through the house like a shadow, present but unobtrusive. The twins, who had previously screamed through bedtime and refused vegetables, suddenly began sleeping through the night and asking for broccoli. She's a miracle worker, Vivienne said one evening over wine, her 3rd glass. I don't know what she's doing, but it's working. Tobias didn't respond. He was looking at a photo on his phone. His assistant had sent it earlier, a candid shot from the home security app. Sienna sat on the floor of the twins' room, reading to them. Leo's head rested on her shoulder. Sophie held her hand. It should have been sweet, but something about it unsettled him. Maybe it was the way his children looked at her, like she was the sun and they were plants turning toward light. They'd never looked at him that way. If this story is pulling at something in you, if you feel what's coming, stay close. We share stories that matter here, the kind that make you think, feel, and see the world a little differently. Let us know you're here. By week 3, Tobias started coming home earlier. Not on purpose, or maybe it was. He told himself it was to spend more time with the twins, but if he was honest, it was to watch Sienna. She never raised her voice, never seemed frustrated. When Sophie threw a tantrum over a lost toy, Sienna knelt beside her and waited, just waited. No bribing, no scolding. And within 2 minutes, Sophie was calm, explaining through hiccups that the toy was special because Grandma had given it to her. Tobias had forgotten that. He didn't even know his mother had given Sophie a toy. Sienna found it under the couch 10 minutes later. "How do you do that?" Tobias asked one afternoon, standing in the doorway of the sunroom where Sienna sat folding tiny shirts into perfect squares. She looked up from where she sat, hands pausing mid-fold. "Do what, Mr. Harrington?" "Get them to listen." She smiled faintly. "I don't make them listen, I make them feel heard." He frowned, stepping into the room. The afternoon light made the space feel warm, almost too intimate. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." She returned to folding, conversation over. Tobias didn't like it. He didn't like not understanding something in his own house. He was a man who built empires by understanding people, their motivations, their weaknesses, their price. But Sienna Brooks was a locked box. That night, he mentioned it to Vivienne. "She's a little strange, don't you think?" Vivienne sipped her wine, eyes on her tablet where she was reviewing seating charts for the gala. "Strange how?" "Quiet, detached, like she's here but not really here." "She's professional, Tobias. That's what we pay her for." Vivienne didn't look up. "Would you prefer she gossip with the kitchen staff and take selfies with the children?" "She doesn't talk about herself at all." Vivienne finally looked at him, one perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. "Why would she? She's the nanny, not a house guest. If she does her job and the twins are happy, I don't care if she's a monk who's taken a vow of silence." Tobias let it drop. But the unease didn't. It grew roots. Week 4, Thursday afternoon. Tobias came home early again. This time he didn't announce himself. He set his briefcase down quietly in the foyer. The house was still. No television, no shouting, just the distant sound of voices upstairs. He moved quietly through the house, listening. He heard voices upstairs, Sienna's, low and steady. Then Leo's giggle, the real one, not the performative laugh he used when adults told jokes he didn't understand. He climbed the stairs and stopped outside the twins' room. The door was cracked open. Inside, Sienna sat on the rug, legs folded beneath her. The twins were across from her, cross-legged, attentive in a way that felt almost unnatural for 3-year-olds. Their eyes were wide, focused. In her hands was something small. He couldn't see what. "Can you feel it?" Sienna asked softly. Sophie nodded, her voice hushed with wonder. "It's warm." "That's because it's alive," Sienna said. "All living things have warmth, even the smallest ones, even the ones people don't notice." Tobias leaned closer, his shoulder against the doorframe. It was a butterfly, pale blue wings, paper-thin, trembling slightly against her palm. "Where did it come from?" Leo whispered, leaning forward but not touching. "The garden," Sienna said. "It was caught in the window. I think it was looking for a way home." Sophie's face crumpled. "Will it die?" Sienna looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe, but not today. Today we help it. Sometimes that's all we can do, help something find its way home." She stood slowly, the butterfly cupped in her palms like a prayer. The twins followed her to the window, silent and reverent. She opened it, leaned out slightly, and released the butterfly into the air. All 3 of them watched it disappear into the sky, a small blue flicker against the gray clouds. Then Sienna turned and froze. Tobias was standing in the doorway. "Mr. Harrington." Her voice was even, but her hands trembled slightly as she smoothed her skirt. "I didn't hear you come in." "Clearly." The twins ran to him, their faces lit up. "Daddy, we saved a butterfly." He smiled at them, ruffling Leo's hair, but his eyes stayed on Sienna. "That's wonderful. Why don't you two go wash your hands for snack time?" They scampered off, chattering about wings and gardens and helping things. Sienna stood still, waiting. Her posture was perfect, hands clasped in front of her, eyes steady. "What was that?" Tobias asked, his voice quieter than he intended. "I'm sorry." "The butterfly, the lesson. What are you teaching them?" Sienna met his gaze without flinching. "Empathy." "They're 3. Which is exactly when they should learn it, Mr. Harrington, before the world teaches them not to care." He stepped into the room, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the floor. "I don't remember empathy being part of your job description." "It's part of being human, Mr. Harrington." Her tone wasn't defensive. It was calm, almost pitying, like she was looking at a man who'd forgotten something essential and didn't even know it was missing. And that irritated him more than anything. "I'd appreciate it," he said slowly, measuring each word, "if you stuck to the curriculum my wife and I agreed on. Reading, numbers, social skills, not whatever this is." Sienna nodded once, understood. She walked past him toward the door, and he caught a faint scent, lavender maybe or something herbal. "Sienna." She paused at the threshold. "Who are you?" She turned slightly, just enough for him to see her profile, the set of her jaw. "Someone who cares about your children, Mr. Harrington, maybe more than you realize." Then she was gone, her footsteps soft on the marble hallway. Tobias stood alone in the nursery, surrounded by toys and books, and the faint warmth of where 3 people had been moments before. He looked at the open window. The butterfly was long gone. Tobias couldn't sleep that night. He kept replaying the scene, the way Sienna had held the butterfly, the way the twins had looked at her, like she was revealing secrets of the universe in a single moment, the way she'd looked at him, like he was the outsider in his own home. At 2:00 a.m., he got out of bed, careful not to wake Vivienne, and went to his office. He pulled up Sienna's file from the secure cabinet, resume, references, background check, everything his security team had vetted before hearing. Everything was clean, too clean. No blemishes, no gaps, no red flags. But also no depth. He opened his laptop and searched her name. Sienna Brooks, London. Sienna Brooks, nanny. Sienna Brooks, Oxford. Nothing. Not a single social media profile. No photos. No digital footprint. No trace of a life lived online. In 2024, that was impossible. Unless someone was hiding. He tried the Ashford family, the ones she'd supposedly worked for in London. He found their profile easily. Charity galas, society pages, family photos. Their youngest child was 16. Sienna had supposedly left when the children grew up. But children don't grow from toddlers to teenagers in 4 years. His jaw tightened. He grabbed his phone and dialed his head of security, not caring that it was 2:30 in the morning. "Run a deeper check on Sienna Brooks. I want everything. Education, employment history, family, previous addresses, birth records, everything." "Sir, we already." "Deeper." A pause, understood. Tobias hung up and stared at the screen. "Who are you, Sienna Brooks?" The next morning, Vivienne was in the breakfast room when Tobias came down, still wearing yesterday's shirt. "You look terrible," she said without looking up from her newspaper. "I didn't sleep." "Work." "Sienna." Now she looked up, her coffee cup pausing halfway to her lips. "What about her?" "I think she's lying." Vivienne set down her coffee with a sharp clink. "About what?" I don't know yet, but something's off. Her references don't add up. She has no online presence. Nothing. Tobias. Vivienne's voice sharpened into the tone she used with incompetent board members. Are you seriously suggesting we hired a con artist to watch our children? I'm suggesting we don't know who she is. We know exactly who she is. A highly qualified nanny who has done more for Leo and Sophie in 4 weeks than anyone else has in 3 years. They sleep through the night. They eat vegetables. They haven't bitten anyone. Do you know how rare that is? She's hiding something. Vivienne stood, her chair scraping against the marble. You're paranoid, and frankly, you're projecting. You feel guilty for never being here, so you're inventing problems where there aren't any. Maybe if you actually spent time with your children instead of stalking the nanny, you'd see what the rest of us see, someone who actually cares. She walked out, heels clicking like gunshots. Tobias sat alone, jaw tight, the words landing harder than he wanted to admit. 2 days later, his security chief called. Mr. Harrington, we found something. Tobias closed his office door, heart already racing. Go ahead. Sienna Brooks, real name Sienna Calloway. She changed it legally 8 years ago, filed in London, clean process. No red flags legally, but... Why? Her father, Damien Calloway. The name hit Tobias like cold water. Damien Calloway, investor, philanthropist, brilliant strategist. And 15 years ago, Tobias's business rival. They'd competed for the same acquisition, a tech startup that became a billion-dollar empire. Calloway had lost, badly, lost his fortune in the aftermath, lost his reputation, lost everything. 3 years later, he died. Heart attack, the papers said. But everyone knew it was stress, shame, a broken man. She's his daughter. Yes, sir, only child. She was 14 when he died, raised by her mother after that, went to Oxford on a full academic scholarship, changed her name at 21, no criminal record, no debts, spotless actually, but sir, she's Damien Calloway's daughter. Tobias's hands went cold. The man whose life he destroyed. Does my wife know? I don't believe so, sir. Keep it that way for now. He hung up. His office felt smaller, the walls closer. Sienna Calloway. Damien's little girl. The girl who'd lost her father because Tobias had won. And now she was in his home, with his children. That evening, Tobias stood outside the twins' room again, same spot as before. Sienna was reading to them, Where the Wild Things Are. He watched her face as she did the voices, made the twins laugh. Calm, gentle, patient. She's Damien Calloway's daughter. The man he'd crushed without a second thought. And now she was here. He pushed the door open. Sienna, a word. She looked up, saw his face, the hardness in it, and nodded slowly. She kissed Leo and Sophie on the head. I'll be right back, loves. She followed Tobias into the hallway. He closed the door behind them. I know who you are. Her expression didn't change, just a slight tightening around her eyes. I thought you might. You're Damien Calloway's daughter. I was, her voice was steady, no denial, no shame. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have hired me if I had? Silence. The truth hung between them, heavy and undeniable. She stepped closer, and he could see the faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes. I didn't come here for revenge, Mr. Harrington. I came here because I'm good at what I do, and because your children needed someone who actually sees them. You expect me to believe that? I don't expect anything from you. Her voice was steady, but something flickered in her eyes, something like disappointment. But I'll tell you this. Whatever you think I am, whatever you think I'm here to do, I'm not. I'm here because Leo hums the same song my father used to sing when he's nervous, and Sophie hides behind furniture when she's scared the same way I did, and no one in this house has noticed except me. Tobias felt something crack inside his chest. I want you gone by morning." Sienna's face didn't move. She just nodded once cleanly. "As you wish." She walked back into the twins' room, closed the door quietly, and continued reading as if nothing had happened. But Tobias heard the tremor in her voice when she started the next page. Tobias didn't tell Vivienne, not yet. He sat in his study that night staring at a photo he'd pulled from the archives. Damien Calloway at a charity function 17 years ago, smiling, confident, a daughter on his arm, maybe 12 years old, dark hair, serious eyes. Sienna. The man had been brilliant, stubborn, honorable. And Tobias had crushed him without hesitation because that's what you did in business. You saw an opening, you took it, you won. He hadn't thought about Damien Calloway in years. Now it was all he could think about. The way the man's company had collapsed, the lawsuits, the whispers, the final fatal heart attack. Tobias had sent flowers to the funeral. He hadn't gone. The next morning, Sienna's suitcase sat by the front door. Vivienne found Tobias in the kitchen, staring into a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. "What did you do?" "She's leaving." "Why?" "Because I asked her to." Vivienne's eyes went cold, the kind of cold that usually preceded very expensive arguments. "And you didn't think to discuss this with me?" "She's Damien Calloway's daughter." Vivienne froze, her hand reaching for the coffee pot stopped midair. "What?" "She changed her name, hid who she was. I don't know what her agenda is, but—" "Her agenda?" Vivienne laughed, but there was no humor in it, just something bitter and sharp. "Tobias, she saved Sophie." He blinked. "What?" "Last week, Sophie wandered into the pool. I was on a conference call. I didn't see her." Vivienne's voice cracked, just barely. "I didn't see my own daughter walk toward the water. Sienna pulled her out, dried her off, calmed her down. She didn't tell you because I asked her not to. I was humiliated. I was supposed to be watching her." Tobias felt the ground shift beneath him. "If Sienna wanted revenge," Vivienne said quietly, each word deliberate, "she could have let Sophie drown. She could have walked away. Called 911 too late, but she didn't. She saved her. And then she stayed quiet so I wouldn't look like the failure I felt like." Tobias sat down slowly, his legs suddenly weak. "Where is she?" "Upstairs, saying goodbye to the twins." He found Sienna in the twins' room. Leo was crying, tears streaming down his red face. Sophie clung to her leg like she was drowning, and Sienna was the only solid thing left. "Please don't go," Sophie whispered, her voice breaking. Sienna knelt down, eye level with them both. She cupped their faces gently. "Sometimes people have to leave even when they don't want to, but that doesn't mean they stop caring. It doesn't mean they forget you." She kissed their foreheads, one at a time, slow and deliberate. Then she saw Tobias in the doorway. She stood spine straight. "I'll be out in 5 minutes." "No." She stopped. "You're not leaving." Sienna's jaw tightened. "Mr. Harrington, you made yourself very clear." "I was wrong." The twins looked between them, confused, still sniffling. Tobias knelt down beside Sienna, eye level with his children. "I was wrong," he said again, this time to Leo and Sophie. "I thought I knew what was best for you, but I didn't. She does." He looked at Sienna, and for the first time in 15 years, he let someone see him clearly. "I'm sorry, not just for yesterday, for everything. For not seeing what my choices cost, for not seeing you, for not seeing them." For the first time, he saw her cry. Just one tear. She wiped it quickly, like it was a secret she hadn't meant to share. "I didn't come here to hurt you," she whispered, her voice raw. "I came here because I wanted to be better than my father's mistakes, better than yours." Tobias nodded, his throat tight. "Then stay and teach us how." Tobias came home early, again. But this time, it wasn't suspicion that drove him. It wasn't paranoia or control or fear. It was anticipation. He found them in the garden, the late afternoon sun turning everything gold. Sienna and the twins were planting flowers, marigolds and lavender and something purple he didn't know the name of. Leo's hands were covered in dirt up to his elbows. Sophie was laughing, really laughing, as she explained to a worm why it needed to stay in the soil. Vivienne sat nearby on the stone bench, actually smiling, actually present, her phone face down beside her. Sienna looked up and saw him. She didn't look away this time. She didn't stiffen or prepare herself. She just smiled. Warm, real, open. And Tobias realized something. The thing that had changed everything wasn't what he'd seen that day 6 months ago. It was what he'd been too blind to see before. His children didn't need perfection. They didn't need control or order or expensive educations. They needed presence. They needed to be seen. And Sienna had given them that, not because she was paid to, but because she chose to. Because she knew what it meant to be overlooked, to be collateral damage in someone else's ambition. And she decided to be different. Leo ran to him, dirt-covered hands reaching up. "Daddy, we're making a butterfly garden so they have a home." Tobias picked him up, dirt and all, and held him close. "That sounds perfect, buddy." Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Sienna says if we're patient, they'll come, lots of them." "Then we'll be patient," Tobias said. He met Sienna's eyes over his children's heads. She nodded just once. A quiet acknowledgement. Some things were worth waiting for. Some things were worth changing for. And some people, the ones brave enough to show you who you'd become, were worth keeping. If this story stirred something in you, if it made you think about the people in your life who see you when no one else does, we're grateful you stayed until the end. Stories like this remind us that healing doesn't come from perfection. It comes from showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. If you'd like more stories that make you feel deeply and think carefully, we'd be honored to have you with us. Subscribe and let us know in the comments who in your life sees you the way Sienna saw those children. We read every word. Thank you for being here.